It's a big weekend for politics.
Nearly all GOP presidential candidates are converging at the Iowa State Fair as they seek to connect with voters ahead of the first Republican debate in less than 2 weeks.
So let's take a closer look at that 2024 race in our big story today. We start with that first Republican debate set for August 23rd in Milwaukee. The Republican National Committee set a requirement known as the Beat Biden Pledge. Candidates have to commit to back the eventual Republican nominee no matter who wins the primary. Former President Donald Trump is expected to campaign at the fair on Saturday, but has said he will not sign the pledge to debate.
So far, 5 GOP candidates have fully qualified for the debate stage, including Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Doug Burgum, and Tim Scott. They met the unique donor threshold, polled well enough, and signed that pledge to support the party's eventual nominee. There are 3 candidates who have met polling and donor thresholds but have yet to sign the pledge: Donald Trump, Mike Pence, and Chris Christie among them. Let's look at the top 4 candidates right now running for the GOP nomination, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. And it is still Donald Trump in front with a commanding lead over the field of Republican candidates. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is polling far behind him, but if you notice, he is the only one there polling in double digits. Entrepreneur and Cincinnati native Vivek Ramaswamy is in third. Former Vice President Mike Pence rounds out the top 4.
Now, many of these candidates are descending on the Iowa State Fair over the course of the next few days. Iowa is significant in the 2024 presidential race. It's the first Republican caucus state. Our Washington News Bureau correspondent Brendan Cullerton is speaking with candidates on how they are reaching out to those voters.
Candidates say the Iowa State Fair is the unofficial kickoff to the fall campaign as Republican presidential hopefuls attempt to win votes here in Iowa and make a name for themselves nationwide. Republican candidates say attending events like the Iowa State Fair is critical to winning over local voters.
Anyone who's grown up anywhere in the Midwest knows how important fairs are.
I want them to understand that I grew up on a farm, that I clean chicken houses, and that I understand their agricultural roots here.
Candidates have events set up throughout the fair, including speaking from the fair's soapbox to send their message to voters.
I know we need new leadership in the White House, but I also believe we need new leadership in the Republican Party.
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson says it's an opportunity to make connections and qualify for the first Republican debate.
I've done it with our poll numbers. I have to get there with the number of donors.
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum also holding campaign events at the fair. He is one of only 8 candidates qualified for the debate and does not think that's a large enough pool of choices.
If I was in business and I was trying to hire the most important job in the company and only 8 people applied and some of them may not even have any prior experience that's relevant, you'd probably say, hey, maybe we should repost this position. We don't have a big enough candidate pool.
Looming over the race, former President Donald Trump will host a rally at the fairgrounds and leads polls by a wide margin, but faces several pending lawsuits.
If he was not selfish, if he looked out for the best interest of the country, he would step aside. There's too much on his plate. It's a distraction, and he's made it clear that if he becomes president again, it's about retribution.
The fair runs through August 20th, and the candidates are expected throughout. In Des Moines, I'm Brendan Cullerton.
Of course, Donald Trump still viewed as the front runner for the GOP in 2024, but will his recent indictment in the 2020 election case have an impact? In a recent NPR interview, Republican political strategist Sarah Longwell said voters she has spoken with have a rally around Trump effect, meaning they see these indictments as attacks against Trump and use it as a reason to support him more. Action News asked ABC political director Rick Klein what he thinks. He agrees there's been a trend of support.
The first and the second indictments, the clear answer is no, he didn't lose any steam. If anything, he opened up a larger lead over his rivals because the biggest trend has been Ron DeSantis collapsing in the polls or seeing his numbers go down. Whether we see the same now, it might be different given the severity of the charges. This was about a former president alleged to have stood in the way of the peaceful transition of power. Maybe there's Trump fatigue that sets in over time, but we just haven't seen it yet. Anything that's come at him has actually just made him stronger to date.
Another big shakeup in this GOP race. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he is replacing his campaign manager, hoping to reset his campaign. He's dropping Janera Peck, but not entirely. DeSantis says Peck will stay on as a strategist. The changes come after DeSantis made 2 big staff cuts in the past few weeks, laying off about a third of his staff in late July as the campaign faced financial trouble.
And back home, some key races on the ballot in 2024 locally. Ohio already is in the national spotlight.
Ohio's special election this this week put Ohio Republicans running for U.S. Senate in the spotlight, specifically Secretary of State Frank LaRose. He made himself the face of the ballot issue that would have made it harder to change the state's constitution. Democrats have spent the week framing him as the reason this issue 1 failed. LaRose tells Action News he thinks the fight was worth it.
It's better to fight and lose than never fight at all when it comes to a worthwhile cause. And I certainly believed that this was a worthwhile cause. And when it comes to Ohio's conservative voters, they know who's willing to fight for their values.
LaRose tells us he's going to advocate against November's abortion amendment, similar to how he campaigned against issue 1.
Ohio Democrats hope that this year's vote on abortion rights will help them in 2024 as they try to re-elect Sherrod Brown to the U.S. Senate. The party's chair saying this week Democrats weren't taking too much time to celebrate their win defeating issue 1. Their focus now turns to November's abortion rights vote. But she says the campaigns send a message to voters.
What all these elections do is provide clarity to voters about what party, what leader in our state is with them, supports their freedom, supports their rights, and who doesn't.
Senator Sherrod Brown, the only Democrat holding statewide office in Ohio who is not on the Supreme Court.
And Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur also faces a re-election challenge next year. The Republican frontrunner to challenge the Toledo Democrat is former state representative Craig Riedel. Now, he lost the GOP primary election last year to J.R. Majewski. Kaptur defeated Majewski to secure her 21st term in the U.S. House. She's the longest-serving woman in the history of Congress.
And that does it for this big story. You can rewatch this and others on our free 13 ABC News app. You can point your camera at that QR code to download it. Today, it is free.